Chapter 1 Camp Franklin. For convenience in organizing the Iowa regiments, several camps had been established. The accommodations consisting of temporary barracks built of common lumber, having tiers of bunks or boxes in which men could arrange their blankets and straw for sleeping, but with few comforts and no conveniences for a life in camp. They were at best only possible habitations for pleasant weather. One of these camps was situated on the west bank of the Mississippi River above Dubuque on the open commons and outlots near the city, and it was named Camp Franklin. The governor ordered the various companies of the 32nd Regiment to this camp where, with those of the 27th and 38th Regiments, they remained for several weeks awaiting regular muster into the service of the United States. The camp was under the control of the state authorities, and the supplies were furnished by the state, to be charged up to the government. The business was conducted fairly well. Subsistence supplies were of good quality and abundant in quantity. The field, staff, and line officers were charged with their several duties, and under the supervision of Major Broadbeck as drill master, the companies and regiments soon assumed the military air, and the men began to put off the civilian and settle down to the school of the soldier. During this period of waiting and preparation, a malignant type of measles appeared. The fall rains and early snows came on. These found their way through the open barracks, and several deaths from the epidemic occurred. Exposure also caused permanent injury to the health of some who survived the attack of measles, but who, in consequence, were discharged from the service. Thus, even in the camp for muster, the casualties of army life were not unknown. One of the pleasant incidents at Camp Franklin was the presentation of a flag by the patriotic ladies of Waterloo. This beautiful banner, the work of their fair hands, became the flag of the regiment, and was borne aloft in storm of shot and shell, as the brave boys promised, stained with their blood, but never with dishonor. The tedium of this camp was relieved by not infrequent visits of friends and relatives who dropped in to see how the boys were getting along. The occasional presence of wives, mothers, daughters, and sweethearts brought joy to some, envy to others, and pleasure to many. The daily duties were but as play to the strong men and frisky boys who there took their first and easy lessons in the life of a soldier. But the short weeks thus spent served a valuable purpose in enabling officers and men to become acquainted, to estimate themselves and each other by comparison, and to form attachments and dislikes that can never be effaced or forgotten. Life in camp, even in a camp of instruction, dispels many illusions. Those who have been neighbors for years and who think themselves acquainted with each other may well go together on an outing for the purpose of proving or disproving the value of all former estimates. There is nothing so valuable for such a purpose. The gold and the glitter, the pinchbeck and the dross, here are so clearly discerned as never before. Chapter 2 Off for Dixie. Although the regiment was formally mustered into the service on the 6th day of October, 1862, it was not till the middle of November that Camp Franklin was vacated. Sunday, the 16th, cold, raining, a gloomy day, the transfer to the steamers Jim Means and Bill Henderson was made. By reason of the low stage of water in the Mississippi River, it became necessary to decrease the draft of the boats by transferring a large number of men and much of the stores to barges in tow. Officers and men accepted with cheerfulness a situation that could not be declined, and among boxes, bales, and barrels, with the sky for a covering, 5 days and chilly nights passed before the camp at Benton Barracks near St. Louis was reached on the morning of November 22nd. Major General S. R. Curtis was in command of the Department of Missouri, comprising a large territory west of the Mississippi, with the headquarters at St. Louis. It was a compliment that was hardly appreciated, and certainly not relished by the rank and file, when General Curtis selected the 32nd Iowa to occupy the southeastern portion of Missouri, 6 companies to be stationed at New Madrid and 4 at Cape Girardeau. Major Eberhart, with A, D, F, and G, took charge of the latter post, while Colonel Scott, with the 6 other companies, established regimental headquarters at New Madrid. This arrangement was understood at the time as being for only a short period, but was destined to last until March 1864. It was an experience that tested the loyalty of its members to the regimental unit of organization, and it is a matter of just pride that the men of both, as well as all subsequent detachments, endured the test, and came out with a fealty to their divided as well as their united services for the country that is well worthy of mention. All members of the 32nd Iowa Volunteers regard the record made by each individual member as a part of one common heritage in which each has a property right and of which each is disposed to claim a share. This disposition of the regiment was of importance to the service in guarding a line across which contraband traffic was liable to be carried on. On the west and to the southwest of this line, the people were intensely disloyal and vindictive. The region was populated in the main by a class of poor whites, emigrants from the states south of the Ohio River, and their descendants, who had sought land and climate not for their intrinsic value, but for cheapness. Among them much ignorance and equally great prejudice and criminality. It was the natural spawning ground of the guerrilla, the bushwhackers, the assassin, whose amusements, and not crimes, were murder and illicit traffic. Sagacity, vigilance, integrity were the important qualifications for the duties in such a situation, and while many of our restless and ambitious men chafed under the restraint and comparative inactivity of this species of soldier's life, and pined for the arduous march, the laborious and dangerous scout, the storming of breastworks, the bayonet charge on belching batteries, the hand-to-hand conflict in deadly battle, worried over the dread that they would never see even one of these great meeting of the armies. It is safe to say that often thereafter these men would have gladly returned to these routine duties, and left the chance to others to earn the fame that belongs to more active forms of war. Later experiences were more exciting than these, but possibly, on the whole, not more satisfactory. Note: the reason for the division of the regiment and the temper of General Curtis over the subsequent evacuation of New Madrid, when ordered by General Davies, may best be understood by referring to a letter of General Curtis to General Halleck. From that letter, it appears that New Madrid had already been a bone of contention between the commanders of the departments on opposite sides of the river. Therefore, when General Davies assumed to again take troops from New Madrid without his permission, as General Curtis alleged, and with Curtis's permission, as General Davies alleged, the indignant Curtis was ready to vent his anger on the 32nd Iowa, or Colonel Scott, or any other innocent party. These facts should be borne in mind when the reader reaches the story of the evacuation of New Madrid for the purpose of reinforcing Fort Pillow in another department, which must be told in the story of the 6 companies. The following official orders explain themselves. Headquarters, St. Louis District of Missouri, St. Louis, November 23, 1862, Special Order Number 6. Colonel Scott, 32nd Iowa Volunteer Infantry, will send in charge of a field officer of the regiment 4 companies of his command to Cape Girardeau, Missouri, where they will take station and remain until further orders. Colonel Scott, with the other 6 companies, will proceed to New Madrid, Missouri, where he will establish his regimental headquarters and take station and remain until further orders. The quartermaster's department will furnish the necessary transportation for both conveying the baggage and equipage from Benton Barracks and the regiment to its destination. By order of Brigadier General E. A. Carr, James A. Greason, Acting Assistant Adjutant General. Headquarters, 32nd Iowa Infantry, Benton Barracks, Missouri, November 25th, 1862, Major G. A. Eberhart. Sir, you will proceed immediately to Cape Girardeau, Missouri with companies A, D, F, and G of this regiment and take command of that post until further orders. By command of Colonel John Scott, Aldridge, Adjutant. Letter of Curtis to Halleck, in review of his circumstances that called for this disposition of the 32nd Iowa. Headquarters, Department of Missouri, St. Louis, November 23, 1862, Colonel J.C. Kelton, AAG, etc. On 25th of October, General Grant telegraphed as follows. Major General Curtis, New Madrid being out of my department, I would like to withdraw the detachment of troops I have there as soon as they can be relieved. Will you send troops to relieve them? I replied the same day. Dispatch received. Can't spare troops from New Madrid at present. General Grant, same day, says, the troops at New Madrid are detachments from other troops of my command. If they cannot remain subject to my orders, I must remove them. On the 21st of November, before I had opportunity to relieve the troops, Brigadier General Davies telegraphed, in accordance with orders from Major General Grant, the troops from New Madrid are being removed to Island Number 10. If you intend sending troops to New Madrid, the guns will be left. If not, they shall be removed. On the 22nd, I answered as follows. Troops and forts in my department are under my command, not General Grant's. On 22nd, in reply, General Davies telegraphs, the troops belonging to this command, which were at New Madrid, have been ordered away. Notice was given you that you might replace them if you so thought necessary, and no answer was received until this morning. General Grant did not think it safe to leave the guns there without anybody to guard them, so ordered a boat to take them to Island Number 10. I have stopped the 32nd Iowa to go and supply this vacuum and briefly report the facts to headquarters with a request that least General Grant should be ordered to return the guns. Please report to General Grant. Samuel R. Curtis, Major General.